3 major accidents in just 2 race weekends at the beginning of what is going to be a very challenging season puts us on the back foot, no doubt about that. Very few teams have the stock to be able to cope with that. The accidents have been large. In both cases, we've had chassis that have got to go back here to the UK to be repaired. We've lost most components on the car, and the updates also got damaged in the process. We have values here within our organisation, and one of the ones that means the most to me is resilience. And we have that in spades. And this is the time where we dig into that and make sure that we come out fighting in Shanghai and all the races beyond. By no means is this the start season that we all wanted, but it's a 24 race calendar. We're here to come back fighting and make sure that we reset, use the car performances available to us, because that's part of the positive of what came out of Japan. We were in a circumstance where we were there or thereabouts with car performance, and use that to good avail across the remainder of the season to make sure we fight our way back up the championship order. In terms of Japan itself, it was great to see Logan racing with a number of teams around us. Clearly, we have elements we need to improve. When we came in for that last pit stop, 5 teams all together at the same time on track, we lost out. Margins of just a few tenths of a second, but that's what our sport is about. It's about getting all of those correct in the right moment and producing a result that you're proud of. We have much to do before China, and we now go into 2 sprint race weekends with China and Miami back to back. The regulations again have changed for this year, and there's a lot of learning that we need to be doing in a very short space of time. I'm confident that we have the tools required to set us up for a good end of the season, a good mid of the season. And I say what we need to be doing is not be caught up with what's happened behind us, but rather look forward to what we have in front of us. Welcome to the Vowles Verdict, presented by Kraken. It was a pretty major accident with Alex. The car went into the tyre wall, the deacceleration was fairly large. Fortunately, both Alex and Daniel were okay. Accidents like that could end up with an injury, and we didn't have that in that circumstance. In terms of the chassis itself, it would have been repairable trackside. So it is damaged, but it is repairable trackside. However, we can do a far better job by sending it here back to the UK. It will be a lighter repair than what we've been able to do there, and a more complete repair as well. So there is damage, but nothing that we can't repair, and we'll have the car back in China as the result. In terms of the accident damage itself, the more significant item is probably that across the last 2 races, we've lost a number of floors, a number of rear wings, a number of front wings, suspension components, gearboxes have been impacted as well. This is a large list by any standard, and it's hard to keep up with the amount of spare quantities required at the same time as working as performance updates in the background. So to answer the second part of that question, the impact is the following. We always plan a certain amount of financial attrition from components, but clearly not in 2 weeks like it is now, but spread rather across the 24 race season. So the impact on it is it will have an impact on what we do performance-wise later on in the year, and the performance components that we brought forward through hard work to Japan are unfortunately destroyed. And so again, that puts us on the back foot for the performance across the next few races while we build up stock of those again. So a little bit of a short term, a little bit of a medium term impact on where we are. One of the fascinating things with Formula One is that actually it's all too easy to get caught up in the now. So right now, it just come out of a meeting where we've been talking about Shanghai and Japan, not about 26. And it's hard to get an organization actually focused on something that's taking place in 2 years' time rather than what's happening in the next 2 weeks, because that's what we're here for. We're here to compete on a world stage. And it's part of the reason why I make sure that focus on the future is very clear, both externally and internally, so that we don't just all get drawn into what's going to happen in Shanghai in 2 weeks' time. So to answer the question, it's not difficult at all to get people worried about what's happening in 24 and 25. It's quite the opposite. It's very difficult to get focused on the future, and that balance is something we have to strike within the organization. Irrespective of this future forward-looking vision, we go into every race weekend wanting to achieve the absolute maximum we can, and we are highly competitive, which means where we finish in this year's championship and next year's championship is of significant impact and merit to us. It's also an indication of where we are as an organization. So the balance of those is what my job is to make sure we strike the right one. I'm confident now that we do have a good amount of forward vision taking place in the background, that we have teams working, be it on an aerodynamic perspective or concept development or otherwise for 26. And that's going to be very, very strong in the years to come. And what we're also trying to do is make sure our company is structured correctly such that we can deal with almost 3 years worth of work in one, because that's what we're now asking of the organization. If you think about it this way, the floor and the bodywork associated with it is your large performance driver. So what you're trying to do is keep those items without building too big an amount of spares pot, such that when you do performance updates, you're not having to rotate out loads of items that you don't need anymore. That would be wasteful fundamentally. So large performance items tend to not have large amounts of stocks. Conversely, items that hardly change across the year, so for example suspension, they're typically the same suspension items you run at round 1 as you will do at round 24. You build up large amounts of stocks of those. Again, nose boxes, those tend to be items that you build up a large amount of stock of. So by that you can probably start to understand how teams, not just ourselves but pretty much all teams, define what spares are available to them and how you therefore prioritize it. In the circumstance though that we've had across the last 2 weeks, it's not about those components being prioritized or not anymore, because all of them were damaged pretty much in this process. So the key element now is making sure we build up enough stocks again, which is again a medium to long-term damage on us, because we're now building stock of something that perhaps isn't as performant as a future component can be, but it's just required to go racing. The strength of this year's car is that we're able to get a balance pretty much across all of the tracks we've been to so far, and they are quite wildly different. Also, we haven't been swinging backwards and forwards in terms of performance order. We've been fairly consistent in where we are. And with the exception of Melbourne, we've had a car that can be racing for points if everything had been absolutely perfect. In Melbourne, that wasn't the case. We were straight out just not quick enough. So the strength of this car is that we're not swinging from track to track. And that means that across 24 races, you have 24 opportunities to score points. The next element of it is, as we have added performance to the car, it is producing results on track. Now, clearly, we're in a circumstance now where damage has put us on the back foot as a result of that. But irrespective, it means that we have a solid foundation and a solid package to work with. It's not a car that's got some spiteful behavior that makes it difficult to therefore add performance to. And then finally, it does correlate to what we have in terms of tools and systems here at the same time. So those foundations are incredibly important to build on. But clearly now what we need to do is to deliver performance step by step, race by race to this car in order to move forward through the field. Strategy will always be a large talking point, and with good reason. What happened to Suzuka is almost a perfect setup for a large amount of unknowns on Sunday, and therefore teams not quite getting it right. Friday, there was a red flag with Logan's accident, which took away a lot of running for individuals. And then further to that, FP2 was wet. So there was very little learning from Friday taken away. Teams didn't know how the tyres were going to perform. Saturday morning, as a result, you saw large amounts of long runs from teams, but not necessarily at the right fuel load, and definitely not at the track conditions we had on Sunday. And that's the third element that wasn't really predicted. The track temperatures against the forecast were much, much warmer. It's actually warmer than it was the year prior, despite being at a different time of year. Completely different circumstances to how we run the tyres before. Those three unknowns meant that a lot of teams went into the race not quite knowing what needed to be done. So you have to be a lot more dynamic in looking at your degradation data as you're doing the runs and how the tyres are performing. In terms of the red flag, it created an opportunity for teams to try doing a hard to the end of the race. But not all teams had two hard tyres available. So fitting perhaps the hard at that red flag, but not knowing what to do or considering taking the medium, created a little bit of an unknown. The trick with strategy is once you go past a certain point, you're almost committed, because being in a halfway house is worse than getting it wrong entirely. And I think that's really what you came out of the race on Sunday, and you saw a few teams committing but in the wrong direction of travel, and now there's no way for them to back out of it anymore without still compromising where you are. Do I think they're optimistic? I think based on the evidence that there was, if you had two hard tyres, it would have been really, really tough. If you didn't have that, it would have been the wrong thing to do. And I think really, as you saw in the end, the two-stop was very clearly the faster strategy. I think it's well observed. Logan was passing car after car, and in fact, as we came into the pit stop, was ahead of those other competitors that we were racing with. His race pace was really on point and he was doing a good job. At the restart, we opted to fit the hard tyre, which is different to most of the other cars around, and actually was a little bit of a concern, because at the beginning of the race, just a few minutes prior to that, you did see those on medium against those on soft struggling. There was a lack of grip. It almost looked like it was Bambi on ice at some point for some of those cars. And yet Logan dealt with that very well. He was able to come up to speed, get the tyres into a working rhythm, and then, as you saw, his pace just got better and better as he was observing how he was stronger or weaker relative to cars in front. It took him a little bit of time just to adapt his line through turns 17, 18, the last two corners, but once he got that absolutely spot on, you saw an overtake after overtake happening. What was it due to? It would have been a combination of elements. I think he built himself up into it. He didn't go straight out. He understood where the strengths and weaknesses were of the car. Without question, it would have been also that it was warmer, so the hard tyre came in a little bit better in those circumstances. And then finally, the grip coming up would have given him just a little bit more confidence. So really more down to him than anything else, but those other circumstances would have helped. There's always learning that we're doing on the package we have against what we have here in Grove, in our wind tunnel, in our simulator, against what's happening on track. So that learning is ongoing. It's not just one race to the next, that's a continuous process across the year. The other learning that we have is that across these first few races, apart from Melbourne, which we believe we understand more and more now, we've been there or thereabouts in competitiveness, but we have to be absolutely perfect to score points against this midfield that are a tough fight now. The big learning though is as we go into China, we're now into a sprint race weekend, which means we have 60 minutes, just 60 minutes to get the car right on a track we haven't been to for many, many years. A track that may have also changed quite considerably over the last few years as well. So the big learning we've had is just that correlation relative to how we're operating the factory allows us to be on the front foot as we go into FP1 and therefore have the best car possible in that sprint race weekend.